Let's let our eyes get heavy, let our brain get quiet. Did you know that yawns are contagious? If you see somebody yawn, it makes you yawn. You ready? Let's try it. Well, it doesn't work if you're trying to not yawn. It got you though, didn't it? Tonight, we're going to read Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Pirates. Chapter 1. The Sea Chest. I remember, as if it were yesterday, the old seaman who came to live at our inn. He was tall and strong, and a black pigtail hung down to his shoulder. His hands were rough, and he had a white scar across one cheek. His name was Billy Bones, and when he was drunk, as he often was, we were all afraid of him. He never talked to any of the sailors who called at the inn, and he paid me 4 pence a month to warn him if I should ever see a sailor with one leg. My father was ill at the time, and I was left to look after Billy Bones. He drank so much that Dr. Livesay warned him that rum would kill him, but he didn't care to change his ways, and when he lay weak and helpless in his bed, he told me dreadful stories of walking the plank, storms at sea, and the wicked deeds of men. He had been the mate on board the pirate ship of Captain Flint. When the captain was dying, he gave Billy Bones a map that showed where his treasure was buried. Since that day, the rest of Flint's old crew had been trying to get hold of the map. It was hidden in Billy Bones's sea chest. One frosty afternoon, an old blind seaman, Blind Pew, called at the inn and asked to be taken to Billy Bones. He gripped Billy's hand as he left, and something passed from his hand to Billy's. Fear filled Billy's eyes when he saw what it was. "The black spot!" he cried. "Jim Hawkins, listen to me. This black spot means that my old shipmates are coming to get me. They're after my map, Jim. They'll kill me." He sprang up as he spoke, and the strain and shock must have been too much. He fell dead at my feet. Billy Bones died without paying his bills. My mother and I took some money from his sea chest to pay what he owed. There was a bundle of papers also, which I took for safekeeping. That very night, a gang of ruffians broke into our inn. My mother and I hid outside and watched as they searched Billy Bones's sea chest. They took the money that remained there, but they seemed to be looking for something else. Unable to find what they wanted, they shouted and raged. I realized that they were after the bundle of papers in my pocket. I went to Dr. Livesay and his friend Squire Trelawney and told them the whole story. When we opened the bundle, we found Captain Flint's treasure map. The squire was very excited. "Flint was the most bloodthirsty pirate that ever sailed," he cried. "I'll fit out a ship in Bristol. Livesay, you'll be the ship's doctor. I'll take you too, Jim Hawkins. You'll be cabin boy. We'll have the best ship and the choicest crew in England. And we'll have that treasure." So it was that Squire Trelawney bought the Hispaniola and prepared her for the voyage. He needed a good crew, and took on a sailor named Long John Silver as ship's cook. His left leg was cut off close by the hip, and under his left arm he carried a crutch. He was very tall and strong. This man was very helpful to the squire, and helped him to assemble a tough, hard-working crew. In a few weeks, the Hispaniola was ready to sail. Chapter 2. The Voyage. We set sail under our captain, Captain Smollett. The coxswain, Israel Hands, was an able man, and Long John Silver was a fine cook. He carried his crutch on a cord round his neck so that both hands were free. We all worked well and willingly, and I often heard the crew singing as they toiled. The song was one I had heard from old Billy Bones. 15 men on the dead man's chest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. I passed many spare moments in Silver's shining galley. His parrot, Captain Flint, named after the famous pirate, swung in its cage and screeched, "Pieces of 8, pieces of 8, pieces of 8," all day long. Silver was interesting company, full of gripping yarns of his other voyages and adventures. He was well liked by all, and the men looked up to him as a leader. We kept a barrel of apples on deck for the men to help themselves. One evening I went to the barrel and, finding it nearly empty, climbed inside to get an apple from the bottom. There I sat, quietly rocked by the sea. Someone sat down on the deck, leaned against the barrel, and started to speak. The words I overheard made my blood run cold. Israel Hands and Silver were planning to take over the ship once we had found the treasure. They would kill the captain and any of us who would not fall in with them. I could not believe my ears. Suddenly there was a shout of "Land ho!" The men all ran to catch the first sight of land. I took the chance to jump out of my barrel and run to the safety of my friends. Captain Smollett was telling the crew about the island. Long John Silver said that he'd been there before when his ship had put in for water. I looked at his smiling face and shuddered. I was now certain that Silver was more than a cheerful ship's cook. He was also a bloodthirsty pirate. As soon as I could slip away, I told the captain and my friends, the squire and the doctor, what I had heard. They decided we were safe until the treasure was found. There were 19 pirates, but only 7 of us. When we were ready, we would surprise them and hope to win by catching them unprepared. We now lay off Treasure Island. It looked a gloomy, forbidding place. The lower parts were wooded, with rocky peaks jutting above the trees. Even in the sunshine, with birds soaring above, I hated the thought of it. We were anchored in an inlet where trees came down to the water. The air was hot and still, and the men were restless and grumbling. Captain Smollett gave leave for the men to go ashore, which raised their spirits. I believe the silly fellows thought they would break their shins on treasure as soon as they landed. Long John Silver was in charge of the 2 boats, taking 13 men ashore. I knew I should not be needed on board, and decided to go ashore too. Chapter 3. My Shore Adventure Begins. I ran up the beach into the woods, glad to be free and alone. I sat quietly, hidden in the bushes. Hearing voices, I moved nearer to catch the words. I could see and hear Silver bullying a sailor to join the pirates. The sailor angrily refused. Silver's answer was to plunge his dagger into the man and leave him lying dead in the forest. I felt faint, and the whole world swam from me in a whirling mist. When I pulled myself together, Silver was wiping his knife on a tuft of grass. I feared for my life if I should be found, so I ran and ran, not caring where. I stopped at the foot of a stony hill. My eye was caught by a movement on the hillside. I could not tell if it was a man or an animal. Here was a new danger I felt I could not face, and I began to run towards the shore. But the creature was fast, and, darting from tree to tree, he came closer. I could see now that it was a man, but so wild and strange that I was afraid. As he neared me, he threw himself down and held up his hand as if begging for mercy. My courage returned, and I spoke to him. "Who are you?" I asked.
I'm the poor Ben Gunn, I am, he answered. It's 3 years since I spoke to anyone.
I had never seen such a ragged creature. He was dressed in a patchwork of tattered cloth, and his blue eyes looked startling in a face burnt black by the sun. Babbling in a high, squeaky voice, he told me he was rich. Sometimes he spoke sense, and sometimes his words had no meaning. I felt he might be crazy after being alone for so long. He said that he'd been on Captain Flint's pirate ship, and that 3 years before he had come back with some men to look for Flint's treasure. When they could not find it, the sailors went off, leaving him alone on the island. When he'd seen our ship, he'd thought that Flint had returned. I told him that Flint was dead, but some of Flint's old shipmates were among our crew. When I spoke of Silver, his face filled with terror. I told him we should have to fight the pirates, and he promised to help us if we would take him back home with us. Our talk was interrupted by gunfire, and we ran towards the sound. Among the trees, we came upon a high wooden fence that ran round a cleared space in the forest. I saw the Union Jack flying from a log house in the clearing. I knew that my friends must have left the ship and were defending themselves in the log house. The battle with the pirates had begun. The Hispaniola lay in the inlet with the Jolly Roger at her mast. On the beach, a group of drunken sailors lolled on the sand. I parted from Ben Gunn and climbed the stockade to join my friends in the log house. They were delighted to see me, for they had feared for my safety. Dr. Livesay told me what had happened after I left the ship. The captain had decided that the time had come to fight it out with the pirates. From Flint's treasure chart, he knew about the log house. Dr. Livesay and one of our men had rowed ashore to find it. There was a freshwater spring by the house, and the high fence made it a good place to defend. They had then returned to the Hispaniola to collect the rest of the faithful crew. They had loaded a small boat with food and ammunition and made a dash for the shore. There was a small group of pirates still on board the ship. When they saw what was happening, they had opened fire on the little boat, and it had sunk in shallow water. The squire's party had waded ashore, but lost half the stores and gunpowder. The doctor was sure the pirates would soon give up the fight. He said they would get ill from too much rum and with disease from their swampy campsite. I told my friends what had happened to me and of my meeting with Ben Gunn. Dr. Livesay wanted to know all about him, for we clearly needed help. The leaders of our party were at their wits' end. We had little food, and the pirates could soon starve us out. I was worn out at the end of a hard day, and soon fell asleep. We'll have to stop there for tonight. Life isn't always easy, is it? It has its ups and its downs. It's like a roller coaster. But that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it exciting. Nobody wants to ride a roller coaster. It's boring. The ups and the downs of life, the roller coaster of life, is the adventure. And you're very good at riding roller coasters. Let's get some rest and then go out tomorrow and have the ride of your life. Good night.